Congressman Dan Goldman has seen it with his own eyes. Masked immigration agents arresting asylum seekers as the Trump administration increases its daily quotas. So first of all, you confronted them, some ICE agents, in the lobby of the building where your office is located. Tell me exactly what you saw.
Well, there were about a dozen plainclothes ICE agents, many who had masks ready to put on, waiting for immigrants coming out of their regularly scheduled court appearances. Now, these are people seeking legal status here the right way, appearing in court, doing everything that they are told they should do in order to come here legally. And what's happening is these ICE agents are waiting, and their lawyers are dismissing the case. So their asylum claims go away. They come downstairs from the courtroom, having no idea really what the impact of that is. And then you have these plainclothes agents arresting them to go into expedited removal, to remove them with a different authority. And I asked them, I said to them, what is the point here? Are you just trying to tally more arrests? I didn't get any real response. And then I said to them, why are you wearing masks? I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years. I worked with ICE agents. I worked with law enforcement agents. I never saw any of them wear masks. This is brand new. And the question is, if everything is legitimate and proper, why are you wearing masks to hide your face?
Well, you know, it's sort of interesting to me that they would be wearing masks. Now, the stated reason from Homeland Security is that they're afraid of being doxxed. In other words, that people would reveal personal information about them on the internet. But to me, it seems ironic that on the one hand, the Trump administration is going after people on college campuses for wearing masks, but then says it's okay if its own ICE agents wear masks. Can you talk to me about that?
It's the height of hypocrisy. Now, look, I think protesters wearing masks creates a more dangerous situation, and I think it's a legitimate issue. But you can't require Columbia University to ban masks in order to get federal funding while you turn around and you have federal government law enforcement agents wearing masks. It is the height of hypocrisy, but it also really reflects something underneath, which is the cruelty and the fear and the terror and the anti-foreigner sentiment that this administration is moving forward with, and they know that it's not favored by many, which is why they're worried about being seen. But that's not who we are. That's not who this country has ever been. My grandmother came through Ellis Island. That's where we are, chasing the American dream. If you commit a crime, you should be deported, 100%. But these people are doing things the right way, and they are getting punished for it by the federal government.
Well, what about the fear factor? Here you are, an immigrant, you're coming out of a courthouse, a courtroom, and somebody in a mask approaches you and arrests you. I mean, doesn't that heighten your worry, your fear, and make it even more difficult for these people?
Well, for sure. But it also creates really perverse incentives, because these are the people going to court, doing it the right way, and they're getting picked up and sent out. So other people are now must react to this and say, well, if I go to court, I'm going to get picked up and kicked out. So I'm not going to go to court, and I'm going to go further underground, and I'm not going to pay taxes through my work visa, and I'm not going to pay Social Security, and I'm going to go underneath the surface, which creates more desperation, which creates more danger, and ultimately makes our communities far less safe by going after exactly the opposite people that they said they were going to go after. None of these people are criminals. None of them are murderers or child rapists. None of that. These are people trying to do it the right way. And Stephen Miller, who is, Donald Trump's right-hand man on immigration stuff, and Donald Trump are ratcheting up their quota of arrests to an ungodly number.
Well, they actually went from 1,800 a day to 3,000 a day, which I think may have some relationship, I guess, to the fact that there's been this increase in arrests in New York. I mean, do you think that's true?
I think it's absolutely true. This is a new policy within the last week of targeting those people who are not criminals, who are here, often with families, often with work visas and on the books jobs, just to jack up the numbers.
So at the end of the week, Homeland Security came up with a new memo about sanctuary city laws, and it's targeting, really, well, it targets every place in New York and New Jersey, Connecticut, but actually around the country. And it has a list of counties, cities, including New York City, by the way, that says you have to change your law or else, because you should protect American citizens, not, quote, violent aliens. What's going on, and are our sanctuary city laws under attack?
100% they're under attack. And the way that the federal government is doing it is saying to cities, if you don't comply with our policy and our approach to immigration, then you will not get federal funding. And there are lots of reasons why you would have sanctuary cities. It doesn't preclude coordination for convicted criminals. That is permitted between the city, the state, and the federal government. And those are the people that they were ostensibly going after. That's what we were promised. And even in that statement, they're talking about violent aliens. No. There's already coordination. Sanctuary cities do not protect criminals from being deported by federal immigration officers.
So do you think that this threat, the threat of losing federal aid, which could be billions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, will work in getting cities in our area to change their sanctuary city laws? Well,
I hope not. There is a lawsuit already that some of the state's attorney general, including Attorney General Tish James, have filed to say this is effectively extortion and coercion, and it's not included in the legislation that appropriated this funding, so that the executive branch, the administration, cannot add an additional requirement. So I hope the courts, take that very seriously. But this federal funding is critical to cities and states, including New York, and it is a big hammer that they have to contend with.
Look, you're a former federal prosecutor. If you could talk directly to President Trump about this policy that you saw firsthand, what would you say to him, and how would you try to convince him that you don't agree with it?
Well, I have learned you're not going to pull at any heartstrings of President Trump. So explaining to him how he's terrorizing entire communities is not going to move him. What should move him is how does it fit in with what his objectives are? And if his objectives are to remove violent or otherwise criminal illegal aliens or illegal undocumented immigrants here, then why is he going after the people who are following the proper procedures? Because what he's going to do is get the exact opposite result. He's going to push more people into crime. He's going to create a less safe environment, and he's going to push people underground. And that's not what we want. We want people to go through the process the right way, and what their case on asylum will succeed or fail as it does through the law, and that's what we want. And so what he is actually doing is undermining his own objectives.
So what effect is this going to have on the New York City economy? I mean, immigrants play a major role in numerous industries in New York City and in New York State, from the home health care industry, the hospitality industry, agriculture. I mean, if you lose these people to this, who's going to do those jobs?
Well, we're going to find out. And certainly those warnings have been made to the administration over and over and over, including by large Republican business people who hire and need the labor from immigrants who are coming over just trying to seek work and benefit from the economy that we have. So we'll find out if there are Americans who are willing to do those jobs. Traditionally, that hasn't been the case, and it's going to have a significant impact if not.
But why would you want to kill the Golden Goose? I mean, New York City and New York State are major contributors in tax revenue to the federal government. We give a lot more than we get back. But if these people are not being part of the economy, it tanks New York City's economy, it tanks the state's economy, and it affects the tax revenue that goes to the federal government. How does that make sense?
Well, it also affects the tax revenue because many of these undocumented immigrants have work visas because their asylum claims are pending. So they are paying taxes. I think it's over $9 billion a year of income taxes paid by undocumented immigrants going through the asylum system. So it hurts the economy on any number of different levels, but that's not what this is about. This is a culture war. This is an effort to implement the Great Replacement theory, to go back to the 1950s with white supremacy. This is creating a culture war within our country that Donald Trump thinks is a political winner for him. But really what it comes down to is it's just fundamentally contrary to our base values.
Congressman, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We are back with Congressman Dan Goldman, who, by the way, spent 10 years as a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, and you had all kinds of cases from the Russian mafia to the Italian mafia. You saw it all. I wonder, what was your favorite case, or what case meant the most to you?
Well, there were two that really stick out. One was Italian mob case. It was as close to the real-life Sopranos as you will get. It was two murders. A hit was put on by the Genovese crime family boss on a capo up in Massachusetts. It was a wild. There was a body that was buried in the backyard, and it was dug up.
You had everything.
Had everything. And then there was also very different, a big insider trading trial I did against one of the world's foremost sports gamblers, who, of course, ultimately got a pardon from Donald Trump.
Okay, that's awfully ironic. So you have a very high-stress job. I wonder what you do to unwind.
I have difficulty figuring that out. I do enjoy watching sports. That's about the one thing that I can try to zone out and just get away from it all. Spend a lot of time, with my kids, who certainly take me far away from Washington, D.C.
So what's your favorite sport? What do you like to watch?
Well, I'm into the Knicks right now, as you have to be, and I'm a Knicks season ticket holder, a Liberty season ticket holder, and my kids and I really enjoy going to games.
What was it like to make the transition to Congress? I mean,
it was interesting. Some of the sort of skills and experience that I had from being a prosecutor and leading the impeachment investigation were directly applicable, right? And the investigations and last term, having fighting the bogus President Biden impeachment investigation, that's the stuff I was most familiar with. A lot of the other stuff was brand new, and I've been spending a lot of time on issues in the district that I hadn't dealt with much before, but can be very rewarding and meaningful, and you can really make a difference, on the local granular level. And that's probably been the most pleasant surprise. The most disappointing surprise is just how little appetite there is for bipartisanship. Even though there's a lot of bipartisan work that happens behind the scenes, it doesn't ever come to the floor.
So why did you run?
Well, I ran largely because I wanted to get back in the arena as Donald Trump was ascending with his power, notwithstanding all of the criminal charges in January 6th. I had a feeling that the Republicans were going to take over the House majority and that they would initiate a bunch of investigations. And that was something I felt like I had a lot of experience in dealing with them on, and that I care very much about the rule of law and our democracy, and I felt like I needed to get back in that arena on the front lines, trying to do everything I can to protect and preserve our democracy.
So what's been the most unexpected thing about being in Congress, if there is an unexpected thing?
I mean, there have been so many unexpected things. Even though I had worked as a staff member down there, I was on a committee. I didn't work directly for an office. I think the most unexpected thing is how many meetings can be scheduled at the same time. It is crazy that I'm always, late for one, or leaving early, trying to touch upon so many different things. But the tough part about the job, there are so many aspects of it. And as a lawyer who really dug into the cases that I worked on, I liked really getting in the weeds on things. And in this job, because you're dealing with so many different aspects of it, you just can't get into that deep.
So how do you feel about what Doge has been doing?
Well, I'm very disappointed in Doge. I think that the idea of making our government more efficient, of streamlining what is a bureaucracy and using advanced technology to do it is great. But that's not what Doge is doing. Basically, they're using algorithms and putting in keywords that they don't like, and they're just canceling those programs, which is not within their authority. They have to come back to Congress. We have the power of the purse, and you have to ask us to cancel programs that we have already authorized and appropriated. But it's also not designed to actually create efficiency. They're just cutting staff right, left, and center without any idea as to which staff is really important and which isn't. And so what you're seeing is actually a much less efficient government, much greater delays, longer waits, and worse service for the American people. So conceptually, I don't disagree with the idea, but the way that it's been executed is the exact opposite of how it should be.
So if you could pass one piece of dream legislation, what do you think it would be?
Well, I think for our country, the most important piece of legislation to pass is expanding voting rights and voting access. We should have automatic voter registration. We should make it as easy as possible for everyone to vote. Because at the end of the day, the right to vote is the core fundamental right from which all other rights flow. And that is the essence of our democracy, is that every individual has that right to vote and can weigh in and collectively can really change the direction of the country. And there are far too many laws that are designed to suppress the vote, to make it harder for people to vote. And we should be doing everything possible to allow anyone and everyone to vote.
You think that's going to be really hard to do given the makeup of Congress right now?
Well, it's hard to do, I think, with the filibuster. And that's the problem that the Democrats ran into several years ago, is that there are a couple of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, there are a couple of other bills that would really expand democracy and would harness our democracy, would deal with some of the campaign finance issues and deal with voting, deal with corruption. But the Republicans blocked it. And even though we had the majority in the Senate, you got to get to 60. I see the value in that. We're certainly seeing the value in that right now. Sure. But it's too bad that Republicans feel like their ideas are not good enough to persuade the majority of Americans to support them. So in order to win, they need to try to suppress the vote and make it harder for people to vote. We should all, it's nonpartisan, we should all be encouraging everyone to vote.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Definitely not a politician. Definitely not a politician.
Did you have a dream? I mean, did you want to study one thing or?
You know, I ended up starting my career in journalism, actually.
In journalism?
Yep. I was a sports editor of my college newspaper, and I went and I worked for NBC Olympics right after college. And I thought hard about pursuing that pathway, but ultimately I come from a family of lawyers, and it kind of sucked me back in, and I went to law school wanting really to do public interest law, public service, and was able to find a good niche for myself at the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, but ultimately really wanting to give back to this country that has given so much to me.
So what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think the best piece of advice is don't plan too much.
Interesting.
And I think I've taken that because a lot of people talk about 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and they're very focused and directed on achieving that. For me, my career has just been a whirlwind, and from one unexpected thing to the other. But part of that is just because, you know, I'm open to the different ideas, and it's been very rewarding to not to be locked into a single objective.
Congressman Dan Goldman, thank you so much for being here, and thank you at home for joining me as well.